Time to focus now on the impact on the economy. I am joined by Mervin Jebaraj. He's an economist with the University of Arkansas Walton College of Business, a regular on this program. Good to have him with us. Mervin, let's talk first nationally and internationally, globally, about this COVID-19 pandemic here. What are the most recent numbers that you've looked at that tell you this is going to take a huge toll on the economy?
Right. I mean, I think if you look at what we saw just released on Thursday, the sheer increase in the number of unemployment claims here in the United States gives you a scale of how widespread the impacts of coronavirus are on our economy. In fact, this is ever since we've started measuring unemployment claims like this from all the states put together nationally. We have not seen an increase like this in one reporting period, not during any of the recessions, including the Great Recession that we've had. So we've never had where from last week to this week, the sheer increase in unemployment claims. So I think what you're going to see is that we're going to have a huge unemployment rate number that is announced nationally. We're going to see state unemployment numbers across our country very likely get close to doubling in most jurisdictions. And I think right now it looks like the unemployment claims that were released on Thursday might actually be an undercount, because I think there are long lines, if you will, to wait online and by phone to apply for unemployment. So not everybody that could apply for unemployment has applied for unemployment. There are employees around the country that are furloughed, for example, that may not know that they qualify for unemployment benefits and haven't applied yet. And as more information goes out to people, you'll actually see probably another increase in unemployment claims in the next week, just as the processing time gets narrowed between this week and next week, and probably over the next week after that too. So what we have, the unemployment claims number, the unemployment rate increase that we're going to see is rather unprecedented. But that is what we expect to see, given that we have ordered the shutdown of many different kinds of retail establishments that take in people. So it's not a surprise. It's just it's still shocking to see that huge an increase. Now, on the international level, you're seeing China relax some restrictions on travel within the country, people going back to work there. South Korea, same story. So you are seeing that countries that went for very stringent measures for a short period of time, where they've completely shut down the country, something that we haven't done here in the United States yet, except in some jurisdictions, seems to have had the impact that they were looking for, which is reducing the infection rate, the spread of the infections, and they're able to get back out. People will get back into the economy sooner. So I think what you're going to see is, to have that level of impact here in the United States, we're probably going to have to look for maybe a national level shutdown to get us, just rip the Band-Aid off, take the pain for 3-4 weeks, whatever it is, and then come back with the infection rate slowed severely, as opposed to the way we're doing it sort of piecemeal right now, and we still see infection rates constantly increasing. But the other big thing is that the countries that have gotten ahead of this are testing a lot more people and tracing all their contacts. South Korea is a great example of this. They never really had the massive shutdowns that you see going on in other countries and parts of the United States, because their testing regime was stellar, and their ability to trace who all interacted with a person that tested positive, and then their ability to quarantine all those folks has been remarkable. And so they've not needed to do the massive quarantines and shutdowns that we're seeing in other countries and in parts of the United States. So I think the only positive that we can look at on an international scale is that, shutting down the entire economy and doing expanded testing and tracing does seem to work in reducing the spread. And even though it causes quite a bit of pain in the short term, it's better to do that all at once than to try to drag this out over several months.
What do you expect to happen in Arkansas? It's a little early to predict right now, just because we don't have current unemployment numbers or sales tax figures. There are a little bit of lagging indicators there, but what do you think is reasonable to expect?
I think we're going to see a huge jump in the unemployment rate here in Arkansas. We saw a massive increase again in the state reported numbers for unemployment claims from the week from this week compared to last week, and will probably climb again because, again, it's been hard for people to get in through the phones or online to apply for unemployment insurance. People that are furloughed may not have applied for unemployment insurance yet, so I expect the unemployment rate here in the state to increase massively. What we have tried to look at from our center, and we've published this on our website, if you want to look for it, it's Walton Insights, if you Google for that. We try to do some back-of-the-envelope estimates on what the sales tax impacts would be across our state in big cities. So we've looked at sort of the big four cities in northwest Arkansas: Fayetteville, Springdale, Rogers, Bentonville. Central Arkansas, we looked at North Little Rock, and Conway. We looked at Jonesboro, Russellville, and Fort Smith. So in northwest Arkansas, those four cities, we're looking at about $200 million worth of sales lost, and we just looked at the industries that are directly affected by this and directly affected by closures, either because the cities or the governor has ordered businesses in these industries to shut down. So we're only looking at restaurants, only looking at bars, hotels that essentially some of them shut down. Many of them have very, very limited travelers coming to them. Personal care services, so hair salons, nail salons, and recreation activities like trampoline parks or gyms or health clubs. All of those that have been directly mandated to shut down or reduce their operations severely. Those are just the sectors we're looking at, and just those industries in northwest Arkansas, the four big cities, is about $200 million worth of lost sales, just looking at March, April, May, and June. And you can, go to the website and try to figure out what the assumptions we went into, how much we margined off for each of those months are. It's all explained in there. In the central Arkansas area for Little Rock, North Little Rock, and Conway, that's about $245 million worth of sales just in those industries. In Jonesboro, about $40 million worth of sales in just those industries. And then Fort Smith and Russellville, sort of the River Valley's big cities, we're looking at about $77 million worth of sales in just those industries. And of all of that, so that's, put together all these big cities, it's about $560 or so million worth of lost sales. About $425 million of that is just from restaurants, because that's where you're going to see the biggest impact. So we try to figure out, limited service restaurants that like drive-thrus, maybe not as big an impact because people still go through the drive-thru, but the full service restaurants, places where people sit down to eat, they're taking a massive hit from this. And what we've projected, most of those impacts are from that industry. The second biggest category is in the hotels. See a lot of impacts there from reduced travelers. So I think you can expect to see fairly large holes in city budgets across the board, sizable decrease in sales taxes collected from these industries for the state as a whole. Obviously, that's going to be offset by maybe some increases in grocery sales by people buying a lot of canned food, toilet paper, or whatever else it was. But at a certain point, people bought maybe too much toilet paper and too much canned food. So later in the year, that sales in those categories are going to go down. So there is going to be an impact on tax revenues for the state, for the cities that come from these direct industries, because people are not going to really double up on going to restaurants and going and getting 2 haircuts and 2 appointments at the nail salon when we're able to go back out into these businesses. So all of that, you're just going to see a series of lost sales for as long as this shutdown lasts. And so again, it's more important to kind of just rip the Band-Aid off, do it all at once, take the pain for a shorter amount of time instead of sort of dragging this out over a longer period of time.
Let's talk theoretically here. The $2 trillion funding package that's working its way through Congress, will it have the impact it's supposed to have, and do you think that they'll need to do more?
Well, I think it is going to have a positive impact in the sense that it is going to, provide some confidence to businesses and to individuals about where their income will be in the next few months for as long as that package lasts. I do think they're going to have to go back in and add more benefits for businesses again, maybe again for individuals as well. But if you just think about the $2 trillion package that is currently working its way through, a big piece of that is $1,200 in checks to most individuals, $2,400 for most households making less than $150,000. That's a sizable chunk of money to a lot of households in the United States. It's certainly a sizable chunk of money to households here in Arkansas to get $2,400 per household, $500 per child. And that should help for a variety of sectors. If you're not unemployed entirely, you haven't been let go, you haven't been furloughed, you don't really qualify for unemployment benefits, and you're still trying to make your mortgage or rent payments, you're still trying to make your utility payments and things like that, buy food. That should help, but it's a one-time payment, and that's important to note that it's not really projected at this point to be available in future months, and maybe that is something that the federal government needs to revisit. I think the more important aspects of this $2 trillion bill is the unemployment benefits that it provides. It adds $600 on top of the maximum benefits that states offer. So in Arkansas, for example, that should amount to a maximum of about a little more than $1,000 a week in unemployment benefits. And I think that's very important to stabilize incomes for a lot of these restaurant workers, for example, that have been let go, have been furloughed because their restaurants and their places of employment have shut down. Now, obviously, not everyone's going to qualify for the full maximum $1,000. That's just the maximum available depending on how much they were making. So, there has been some concern whether that will incentivize people to quit. The thing about unemployment benefits is you do not qualify if you quit. You only qualify for unemployment benefits if your employer has let you go for economic reasons, not for bad performance or anything else. So it has to be because of these shutdowns, they let you go. Then you qualify for these unemployment benefits. So it's not going to have the sort of distortionary impact that people are thinking that it will have. Obviously, in a lot of places of employment, you want social distancing, and that's not something that you can maintain in, say, manufacturing settings or restaurants or places like that. So you do have to let these people go, let them be furloughed. What will be important to see is if some of that money can be used for a work share program. Arkansas is one of the 26 states that have a work share program where you don't have to let your employees go. You can just cut their hours, and then the unemployment benefits kick in for the amount of hours that they've lost that they would typically work. But whatever few hours are available to work at the employers, the employers can continue to pay. And that is important because if we let all of these workers go and they hit the unemployment benefits and all these things and they're forced out of their jobs, it's a lot harder to recover from the recession because then you have to go recruit workers again once this is all over. Whereas if we just use the work share program and say you're an employer, you have 100 hours worth of work with 10 employees, you just give 10 hours to each of the 10 employees, and then the regular amount that they would have gotten, they would get from the unemployment benefits. And this allows employers to maintain their employees, keep them trained, all of those things, and then when this is over, they're able to ramp up immediately. And then the other big impact, obviously, are the loans and grants available to businesses. Again, small businesses that maintain about 90% of their payroll during this time period are going to get sort of loans that will turn into grants. So if they use the money to pay for rent, pay for payroll, and keep about 90% of their workers, they're going to get money from the federal government that they don't have to pay back, and I think that is very important as well. And then the last bit that really doesn't have a whole lot of details is about $150 billion worth of state support. Arkansas should see about $1.25 billion of that money coming to states. It's not clear how that money will be apportioned between the cities and the states, but that should ideally help plug the holes in state and local budgets from the sales tax impacts that we discussed earlier. So there are a lot of moving parts there. This is a huge bill. It needs to be huge. It's not a stimulus bill as much as it is a disaster recovery bill at this point. But I fully expect that the federal government will have to revisit and add more money over the next few months.
It's a shock to the economy, no doubt. He is Mervin Jebaraj, economist with the University of Arkansas Walton College of Business. Always good to have his insights.
Thank you.
When we come back, one more thing to hopefully lift your spirits a little bit. Stick around.
When homemade is too good to keep at home. helping Arkansas business do business. Making better happen with First Security.
You'll find us at the end of a lot of long country roads, covering over 60% of the great state of Arkansas. Our 17 electric distribution cooperatives are working day and night to provide reliable, affordable power to over 500,000 homes, farms, and businesses, just like yours. The Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas, your local energy partners.